I've been enjoying the rise of Gary's economics on YouTube, but I have some alternative thoughts to what he's saying. If we had merged our ideas together, we could have been able to find a middle ground that is good for everyone involved, not just blame the rich, although it has its place in some places. But we want to also lessen the burden for the working poor and middle class. And so in this video, I'm going to explain all of this and make sure you send this to Gary so that him and I can have a fruitful conversation and discuss the upcoming financial collapse. And in my opinion, the great reset that kind of has been planned by the very, very elite for a long period of time. So they're ready for it. Unfortunately, the poor and middle class are not, and we need to get them ready. So I totally agree with Gary on that subject, and let's get right into the video. So first of all, let's understand that Gary is a fantastic guy, okay? He literally, and I wholeheartedly believe this, that he has the working class, the poor and middle class at heart, and he wants to save them from all of the stuff that's going to come, because he's predicting that there's going to be a form of societal collapse or at least a financial collapse of some sort. I personally feel there's going to be a societal collapse temporarily, but we can avoid it. And yes, it can be stopped, but the whole world has to understand the equation of how things are working so that we can do the things that are necessary and right to solve the equation. And the rich are not going to do it on their own, although it's in their best interest that they do and that they collaborate with the poor and middle class so that they can have a less bumpy ride because it's going to get bumpy for everyone. So this message that Gary is coming out with resonates very much with the poor and middle class because they are in a victim situation, okay? It's not them who've put themselves in that situation. It's their parents and their parents before and their parents beforehand, etc. But those people have been in that situation as a result of ignorance. If they knew better and did some different chess moves, knew some different people, things could have been different for their parents, but they weren't. And so we inherited what we got from our parents, which is most probably poverty and middle class type lifestyles, and ignorance. We inherited ignorance. So the solution to the problem, and I'm giving you hints now for the end of the video, is an understanding of what's going on, just like Gary is saying, but also an understanding of how you can at least, if not the entire economy and all countries and the world, if you cannot save all of those, and the probability is slim that you're going to be able to solve all of those equations, then at least you can save yourself. At least you can save your family. At least you can prepare yourself for the things that are going to happen because you know in advance what's going to happen and you're going to prepare properly to do what needs to get done. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and Gary is extremely correct about this one, but he has a little bit of a situation that needs to be solved in his equation, and that is that the cause of poverty is wealth inequality. I would rather say that wealth inequality is the same as poverty. These are two and the same things. Wealth inequality is poverty. So you can't say that that is the cause of poverty. What causes poverty is our behaviors. The root cause of poverty is what you and I do and have on a continuous basis. And that is what makes up poverty, and that is what makes up wealth inequality. So if you and I do different things, and we have different things, then we are no longer going to be in poverty. Does that make sense? And it's very important that this is brought up, because to say that wealth inequality is the problem is to automatically only blame the rich. And in this specific situation, it takes two to tango. It's not just the rich that are to blame. The poor are also to blame. And the middle class too. We're all to blame, okay? And the reason why is because we are society. We the people are society. But since we are all the problem, that means that all of us have a part to play in the solution. You can solve your problem. You can solve your problem of poverty. You can improve. You can get better. You can develop skills. I'm not saying that you have to get rich or you have to become an entrepreneur. I'm just saying simply that you can change your circumstance, and it's way easier to do it right now than it is going to be in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 20 years' time. So this is the time to listen up, both to what Gary is saying temporarily, but I think it's very important that we also hear the other side of the message, which is my message of less blaming, more doing. Little less conversation, a little more action, please, right? I mean, I used to sing Elvis back in the day, and that actually is a pretty good sentence in this specific situation. Yeah. So I remember Gary's participation in the Diary of a CEO's podcast. It was a 2.5-hour podcast. I listened to it 2x, and it was intense at times. There was a lot of information, but a lot of stories as well that were great. And Gary came with one, which was about the one time when he had been out and he went to unlock his bike, and then someone came up to him in the middle of the night and started talking to him. And obviously this is the middle of the night, like, what's happening here, right? And the dude started crying. And so Gary was just listening to this guy saying he was so grateful for Gary because Gary had been the first one to ever have told him that it was not his fault. And I totally resonate and understand that conversation because it is true. A lot of the poor and middle class have continuously been blamed by their ignorant parents. Remember, like, we inherit the ignorance of our parents. And so parents ignorantly very often tell their kids that they are not enough and that they are to blame and that they are the cause and the problem of the family. Okay, so those kids are raised in those types of situations, and it causes a destruction on their psyche. This is one of the benefits that the rich have over the poor and the middle class very often, is because the good rich, I'm not saying all rich parents are amazing, okay? All families are dysfunctional. All parents have no idea what they're doing, right? Because the first time we're trying it, it's the first time we're doing it. And but we need to understand that this is what happens in all families. We don't feel like we're enough, and we feel like it's continuously our fault as children. And it's not our fault, and it's also not our parents' fault. It's an evolution of time. We're all evolving and trying to improve and get better as time progresses. And so it's no one's fault, really. But if we blame it on someone else, then we no longer have the opportunity of change. If you make someone else the leader and you blame them, then you are literally, in that situation, making them the leaders. You're saying nothing's going to change until you change. But that's the opposite of what we want to have happen, because it puts the situation in their control, not ours. You want to have as much control and power as possible. Because if you have power and control, you can make a difference in your situation, in your family situation, and in the world situation at large. You can, in the future, you as an individual, if you wanted to, and if you had burning desire to make it happen and belief in yourself that you could make it happen, you could bless the lives of 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 100,000 people, maybe even 1 billion people. You might have the power to do that if you believe that you do. What you think you can or you think you can't, you're pretty much going to be right. Because although Gary is correct, there is an extensive focus on blaming the rich and putting them in one big container when there's both good and bad poor and middle class, and there's also good and bad rich. Just because someone has money doesn't make them bad. Because if you believe that, that means that you will never get rich. And why would you ever put that on yourself to never have abundance when it comes to financial things? Understand that life is not just about money. But yes, it is important that we have sufficiency for our needs. But think about all of the things that you have in your life that you can be grateful for. You might be rich from a health perspective. Like you're able, you have limbs, you have arms, you have feet, you can run, you can walk, you can do whatever, you can sleep at night. Congratulations, bro. Like you are wealthy when it comes to health. When it comes to relationships, you might have fantastic relationships. Maybe with your parents, they're great people and they're doing their best. And you have siblings that are great, and you have friends that are amazing, and you're just so happy and grateful that you have these people in your life. There are rich people that are extremely poor when it comes to health, and extremely poor when it comes to relationships, because they are ignorant on those specific subjects. Now, they could choose to get rich on those specific subjects, and there's no reason why a rich person should ever be in that situation of not being rich in those two subjects unless they're just simply growing old. But they could also grow old nicely, right? So we are all rich in some way, shape, or form. But we're now talking about the financial aspects of things because that's the discussion. Just like it's the rich person's fault that his relationships, at least his relationships, should be rich. If they're not working in his life, that's his fault. He is the common denominator. And in the same way, shape, or form, the poor middle class individuals, not as a whole, but as individuals, they are responsible for their financial situation. And you should never ever blame anyone else for the circumstance that you are specifically in. Not that your parents put you in because they didn't know any better. Not that you've put you in because you didn't know any better, but you still shouldn't blame anyone else for your circumstance because at some point you have to make a decision to get out of it. So you could sing the song of Michael Jackson of "All I want to say is that they don't really care about us. Hee hee, hoo hoo." Okay, I used to be better at it in the past, but I quit my music career a freaking long time ago. We're talking like almost 20 years. Anyway, we're getting back to the story. You could sing that song, but are you sure that you would care about other people if you were rich? Just really reconsider for a second. Would you prioritize you, yourself, and your family, and your lineage, and making sure that you have as much power as possible because you are probably less ignorant financially than poor and middle class people? Would you truly care about them and give away your fortune? Probably not. Rich people are going to do everything in their power to make sure that they do not lose that power and that they do not have to pay a bunch of taxes, because the money that goes into taxes most probably are not going to be spent very well, because politicians are ignorant about how money works and they're simply putting money, our money, the rich and the poor and middle class money, inside of their own pockets, not doing much other than being in frickin' meetings and regurgitating what the party told them to say on TV. Okay, so we need to understand that point, because we all have a responsibility to care not only for ourselves, but for society at large and for the human family, because if we don't, we're all going to continuously fight. And if we're all fighting, then we are putting ourselves in a violent situation where anarchy is going to be, where you're going to not trust anyone, society is not going to function, there's not going to be government to protect the poor and the middle class and giving free health benefits and all this stuff. Nothing's going to be there, and everyone's out on their own. And the only way you're going to survive at that point is to be part of communities that have fortresses, okay, and weapons in order to guard the little itty bitty resources that they have as a result of fencing themselves in and not trading with other people outside. We do not, as a world, as a human family, want to return back to those good old days of fortress building and kings and issues with communities fighting against each other because there are no resources, because we don't have land that we're tending to and growing, and we are also creating swords or guns and atomic bombs instead of actually collaborating and cooperating and making sure everyone has enough. This is a leadership problem. And yes, the majority of the responsibility is on the rich, but we've got to do our part as the poor and middle class to help them to lead us right. And there are both good rich people and there are also bad rich people. And there's something that you can do to help the good rich people, and that is to buy their products and services only, and to never ever buy from the bad people's products and services. Who is it that makes rich people rich? Do they just magically become rich because they inherited it from their rich parents? No, you and I are daily spending our money. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. Is it really money? But we're spending our resources supporting and building up and voting for the power of the rich. And just like I said before, there's good rich people, there's bad rich people. And you want to support good rich people because they care about you at least more than the bad people care about you. The bad people don't care about no one. They only care about themselves. Now that is extremely ignorant, and that's why their relationships are going to fail and why they will eventually fail as well in the future. Good people, we want them to be our leaders. Please produce more goods and services for us. I'll pay you, okay? I want a job, okay? Give me a job, give me an opportunity, and I'll build you even more up because I want good rich people to be in leadership. And honestly, they are the ones that are in leadership, both good and the bad. And there's a struggle going on between them, but they can't be public about it because then suddenly you become a target. And rich people know that. They've got to play this game wisely, and that's why you very often can't hear who is a good rich person and who is a bad rich person. You can't really know that because they become targets. And they don't want to be targets. They want to rather build up their power. Why? So that they can take down the rich people that are bad. This is the game. And we as poor middle class very often don't consider that we're pawns in that game. And pawns are not worth that much. But we can become worth something if we take our next steps to the other side of the chessboard, right? If you understand the chess analogy. Once you get to the other side, you can become any of the pieces on the table. And obviously, don't become a queen. Or should you become a queen? Yeah, good point. Okay, anyway. The problem is the people. The rich and the poor and middle class. The solution is the people. The rich and the poor and middle class. No finger pointing will ever solve anything. So we need to work together. All right, so let's go over to the next point. Let's understand that this battle has been in history since the beginning of time. In fact, even before that as well. And the most important lesson for us to learn is this one. It's private property ownership. We're here to learn that one lesson and to understand that you should never ever steal from each other. Now, this is not the world that we live in because there is a massive entity that continues to steal from us on a monthly basis. And it's called the government. And they steal from us and say that this is what's needed in order for us to have a civil society. And they do it at the threat of violence and jail time. And so as a result, we pay it. The government only really exists for one reason, because we don't know if poor people are ever going to be taken care of. If everyone was good and everyone took care of the poor voluntarily by helping out with food kitchens, by helping out to do, like makeovers, like making a poor person suddenly able to get a job, by educating the people that just simply don't understand how to get a job or how to do a resume or how the world works in general. Like if everyone just actually put in the work of taking care of the poor and the needy and the widows and the orphans, etc., then we wouldn't need government. We only need government because we're not taking care of the poor and the needy, when you really think about it. So we've put this elite class in power above us and are begging them to make a change. Gary's pretty much saying, please, government politicians, tax the rich. We need to tax the rich. And he wants all of us to line up and build and build and build and build and build and build to the point where the politicians can't ignore us anymore and we can vote for the government to tax the rich. There's only one problem. The rich own the politicians. How does that work? There's something called cronyism and corporatism. And this means that the rich of the rich of the riches are funding politicians so that they win the elections. And so as a result, politicians can never speak badly about the rich because then they don't get funding. And if they're not elected, then their ideologies and philosophies will never come to fruition. And they will never put in laws in place in order to force people to give them money so that they can take care of the poor and the needy. You see how all of this works. The one who has the gold rules. It's the golden rule. Unfortunately, that's the situation we're living in. And as long as there's bad rich people, we're kind of at a struggle. So I'm encouraging you to vote, but I would encourage you to vote for less government. Oh, but then the rich get even more money. Well, you can then also make more money. You can compete against those people. Not from an individual perspective. Well, I'm going to compete with Bill Gates, or I'm going to compete with the people that have built massive businesses. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you can compete on the same level field of having very low taxes yourself, and then you go out there and you create something. And if you don't want to create something, at least you don't have taxes on your salary. Are we literally going to make it so that we're going to tax all of the rich and we're never going to tax the poor and the middle class? How does that work? You need to understand how the rich become rich, okay? And I'm not talking about inheritance type rich people, okay? The vast majority of rich people are first generation self-made. That's the vast majority of billionaires. They're self-made in their own first generation. So if we know that, how did they become rich? And you could say that, they took the money from the poor and middle class. Bro, it is all a win-win situation. Unless you're called the government, you're not going to come with a pistol to a poor and a middle class person and say, give me all your money. That's not how it works, right? So what do they do instead? They produce products and services that the poor and middle class are purchasing. We are supporting and building up the rich. And so if we understand this concept of we are the ones that are voting, and we are also capable of creating businesses and going out there and getting jobs and being ambitious and working hard and making things happen, that's when we can massively make progress. Not just blame the rich and not just give in your vote, right? If you are to vote less government so the government can take less of your money, less taxes for you because there's limited expenses of the government. More money goes back to your pocket so that you can now go out there and create something of your own. Gary sometimes says that, man, this is going to be a very hard road, but we can win. And the reason why we can win, and this is what he explains, is that in the 20th century, we actually did make it happen. We had better middle class than ever before in history. And yes, we sure did. From basically late 60s up until today. This has been an unprecedented time, never happened before in history. And why did that happen? Okay, so we had just been part of the war times in the Second World War, and people had returned home. Everyone was a little bit freaked out from everything that had happened, especially those that had been to war, the veterans that had now come home. But we entered into the baby boomer age, okay? And when you enter into a situation where you have kids, very often it takes about 15 to 20 years before you get rich. And that's just what happens because you have to take care of these kids, right? And there was a lot of kids. So now we enter into the mid-60s, and what happens then is that they started lowering the taxes. The taxes had been like 90%, 95% on the rich during that time frame. People making more than 100K, 200K a year type thing, which was a lot back then. And then they started slowly putting that tax rate down, not up, down. And it first went to 70% with John F. Kennedy. And now what happened as a result of this? Now suddenly the rich come out of the woodworks to do what? To create jobs, okay? We want to create as many jobs as possible because jobs is the solution to prosperity. If people produce, if people work, then suddenly we have stuff. We have goods and services. And when there's goods and services, meaning solutions to our problems, then we buy. And if there's a lot of solutions to our problems, then we get to choose which one we want. And now there's competition amongst the business owners. John F. Kennedy was actually a massively motivational dude because he said, do not ask what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. People were riled up, okay? And they started massively producing goods and services. What happens as a natural result? This is very important because this is the opposite of what's happening right now. There's not a lot of growth in the economy right now. And why is that? We're not highly motivated right now. We could blame the rich and we could blame wealth inequality and we can blame our poverty and the government and all that stuff. But that's not how it works, although the government played a part in improving things in the 60s because of John F. Kennedy. Thank you, right? What happened is that we spent less than we produced. We produced more than we consumed. This is the key to life itself. And very often, what poor people and middle class tend to do is to spend more than we produce. If the vast majority of the people do that, what is the natural result? We're going to be stuck. We're going to go into a stagnation type of period of time. We're not going to want to do anything. What happens when we go to war? The same thing happens, right? Instead of producing goods and services because you're freaking scared for your life and you're trying to protect your family and you're trying to get good at, guns, and then acquiring guns during that time frame, bro, are you going to be producing goods and services? I didn't think so. Which is why things get so horrible during the war times because no one has what they need. We want to avoid war as much as possible. And if that's the only thing that you get from this video is like, let's avoid war, shall we? Like, let's not go into that period of time that we're going to head into blaming people. Because the moment we start blaming people, that's when the guns come out. Because when you blame, then you start an escalation. And once the escalation happens, then people start throwing fists. And when people start throwing fists, then people start pulling out their guns. And once they pull out their guns, we're in deep doo-doo. You don't want to be in that situation. No one wants to be in that situation. So let's get back to the prosperous times. The rich are the ones that have the most opportunity to create more jobs. They simply have to think of an idea and then they're like, I will need people for that. Or robots, but we don't want people to use robots. We want them to use humans because then we've got jobs. Great. So we incentivize or we're grateful for the rich to give us jobs and employment so that we can go out there and produce stuff, goods and services. Great. So they build systems, they build factories, they build the infrastructure for us to be able to produce, and now the poor and middle class have jobs. They might struggle to find a job because they might not have any skill sets, but if they work for free enough, they'll have skill sets, and now they can start producing true value, of producing more value than they take from the market. Fantastic. Now we're getting somewhere. Now you're getting somewhere. And this is because we stopped blaming and started working together as a team. Productive people produce prosperity. Prosperity always comes from work. Lots and lots and lots of work. If you as a person go out there and work 40 hours a week, you can produce food and housing and whatever other stuff you might need for your family, enough for at least 2 or 3 people. right? In today and age. In the past, maybe you could have been able to support 10 people, right? But times are a little bit different now because of what I'm going to explain in a second. Make sure you stick around because this discussion is extremely important. If you wanted to, you could be the one that creates jobs. You don't have to be rich to create jobs. You just have to have an idea. And then you hire people, and those people are producing more than they consume from the company, right? So there's a profit. Now the rich person is the one that makes the profit, and what does he do with that profit? Well, he has a choice. He can take that out of the company and hoard it, buy gold and silver or whatever it is he wants to buy with it. Why would he just do that? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So usually what the rich do, and this is what accumulates their net worth, by the way, is they just keep that money back into the company in order to create more jobs. Okay, so a profit for a company is fantastic so that they can go out there and make more jobs for the community. Great. What does the person that has done that job now do? Well, he now gets a profit because he is spending less in his personal life than he is making. This is growth. This is fantastic. This is prosperity. So instead of going massively into debt to buy a house or to buy a car, to buy this, that, and the other, he instead lives sustainably, okay, and keeps his expenses much less than what his income is. And if he's lucky, he has his wife to work as well, and they're collaborating with the household finances, and things are kind of working out. It would be great if the man is qualified enough and skilled enough so that the woman doesn't have to work, so that we can take care of our children properly. Because that's part of the reason why society is the way it is and why we've got so much victim mentality and people not wanting to do anything, having mental health issues and going to therapists that are making a lot of money these days. It's because parents weren't present. They weren't around. They were busy with problems at work, right? This is how it works from a big zoom out perspective. We want to make life better for everyone. We want to have prosperity for all, but it's going to require teamwork and it's going to require every single one of us to take less than what we are producing from the situation. And rich people are not taking a bunch of money. And if they are, they're buying toys with it. Like, you can't do anything with money. Like, they don't have gold massively stored up in their basement or something. And even if they did, during a financial collapse, they would have to start using it. And guess what? Gold would then go into the economy and into the marketplace. And you could earn that gold by helping the rich person solve his problems. But only solve good people's problems, right? You don't want to solve the problems of the rich, because then we get wars and then we get problems and issues. Because you don't want greed to win. You want productivity to win. We want progress. We want wealth to all. And it is possible. If we produce little, we get poorer. If we produce a lot, we get richer. If we take responsibility, we can produce. If we blame, we stop producing. It is very important that we understand how this game is played. This is the game of life. And if you play it right, you can transfer yourself from class here up to the next class and then the next class and then the next class. When the majority of people consume more than what they produce, then prices go up. When we produce more than what we consume, there's a lot of options, there's a lot of competition, and that causes prices to come down. So we want to be in that situation where prices are coming down, and the only way to make that happen is if we produce more as a society, as a marketplace. The more products and services we have, the more wealth we have. So the more we serve each other, the more wealth we have. The less we serve each other, the less wealth we have, the poorer we become. You serve other people, both people win. Wealth increases. You don't serve other people, both people lose, and we get poorer. At the same time, if we produce more goods and services than we produce money, this is an important note, then we all become richer. But if we produce more money than we produce goods and services, then all of those products and services are going to become hella expensive in money terms. And that brings us to the next topic of money. And this needs to be explained. You have to understand how the concept of money works in order for you to have any chance of going from class to class to class until you can become rich, because you can. And if you can't get rich because of all of the crap that we're going to go through in the next decades or so, you can prepare yourself so that your kids can get rich, and then your grandkids and beyond. Because that is an ignorant situation, and that's it. If they are educated on the subject because you educated yourself on the subject, then they can win. So it starts with you taking responsibility and not blaming anyone. Not the rich, not Gary, not anyone else. We take full ownership and responsibility, and as a result, we're going to change the world. So, as was said in The Wolf of Wall Street, money is not real. It's fugazi money, okay? It doesn't exist. You might have seen that movie, but what does that mean in real terms? Like, explain it to me easily so a child can understand it. Okay. Money is a medium of exchange. It is also a storage of value, but it's also a unit of account, okay? How we measure things. We measure if this is expensive or cheap. That's a unit of account, okay? So medium of exchange, storage of value, and a unit of account where we can measure things. For all of history, the vast majority of the time, humans have used gold and silver as money. We could have used stones, we could have used cows, we could have used other things, whatever. We use the vast majority of the time gold and silver, and so let's stick to that type of scenario for now because it'll help you understand what happened with gold and silver. Over the course of history, people dug and found gold, okay? This is called mining. And they used that gold because it was shiny as a medium of exchange in order for them to get products and services, because what are you going to do with gold? I mean, like, literally, you're just going to store it, put it in the back room. The more you stack it, the more people can come through and steal it, right? You don't want that. It puts your life in danger. So it's better for rich people that find gold to put it into the marketplace and begin circulating it and get goods and services, build businesses and do that type of stuff, right? And that's how they get richer and richer and richer, because they don't want to have gold stored in a vault somewhere like, you know, Uncle Scrooge, right? That's what his name? Yeah, that's what his name is. Okay. And then what happened? The US government started going broke, okay? We went broke actually already at the start of the war, and we were still struggling with money, but we're trying to keep that a secret from everyone with the Bretton Woods Agreement. Everyone kind of broke here, but we at least won the war, so let's just keep it a secret that we're also struggling. They spent a lot of money on the wars, bro. Okay, and we entered into the 50s and 60s with the baby boomers. That was kind of problematic. And then we entered into the 60s, and then we realized, holy crap, yeah, we didn't make it. We're bankrupt. This is what happened in the early 70s. In fact, August 1971 is that huge month that something massive happened that changed the course of history forever. And it is the reason why we're going to go into massive financial and probably societal collapse, which is a huge issue and a huge problem, but they didn't understand what they did back then in August 1971, and it had short-term benefits, but it's going to have long-term ramifications. Now, you could argue that we learned a lot over the past 50, 60 years that's going to allow us to now bounce back effectively so that we can overcome the situation easily. Because it's true that we now have the ability to have social media and information spread at lightning speed as a result of the inventions that happened in the 60s and the 50s and 70s and etc. And as a result of those inventions, we now can spread the message and educate people on that which works. So was it a bad thing that they took it, that they did what they did in August 1971? That's a very good question. But let's just say that it was a bad thing for now so that we can understand this video. August 1971, President Richard Nixon went live on television and said, from now, in this moment, we have taken the money, the government bills of paper that we're giving to people that is supposed to be convertible into gold that we are supposed to store in our vaults. He didn't actually say that, but that was between the lines. We're going to take this government paper bill and separate it completely from gold. You can no longer convert your US paper dollars into gold. And as a result, this government issued piece of paper was suddenly simply that. Fancy paper issued by the government. That's it. Fancy paper issued by the government. You have to let this sink in. The dollars that you are working extremely hard for do not have any value. In fact, they have a negative value because we are cutting trees in order for us to produce them. That's bad for the environment, okay? And yet we do that in order for people to believe that this money has value. And this was done in all countries worldwide, and they followed suit. Why? Because the leading example, the United States of America, made that massive decision in August 1971. Now, what do you think happened with the stock market immediately after? Because Ray Dalio has the famous story of him going into work that day at the stock market exchange in New York and being like, holy crap, like this is horrible for the economy. What's going to happen now? Like all countries are going to be in arrears and everyone's going to be upset with each other. Nope. People understood it. The moment that happened, that gold was severed from the US dollar, the stock market massively went up. Because paper dollars, which is what the stock market and the gold price and anything else is measured by, suddenly tanked in value. Like you can't use it as a unit of account anymore. You can't use it as a medium of exchange. You can't use it as a store of value. And so you want to get rid of it, right? This is what happened. But then something very interesting happened. Not much happened. That's it. Like it's like everyone still trusted the US government. Everyone didn't mind. Everyone believed that the dollar still had purchasing power. Oh, okay. Well, I guess we can run with this then. And this is what we've done for the freaking past 54 years. We're still believing that this piece of paper has value, and it does not. This has both positive repercussions and negative repercussions, and I'll explain both. The negative repercussions is kind of obvious. We are slowly educating ourselves and understanding that this is the case. And so slowly but surely, everything, all products and services are going up in price. And it will happen exponentially until we enter into hyperinflation. We cannot stop that from happening. Technically, we could stop that. But are we going to be able to get politicians to admit that the dollar has no value at all and that we go back onto the gold standard or onto a Bitcoin standard? I don't know how that's going to look like. But anything else standard or convert it back to convertibility to gold. Like, this is not going to happen. We're not going to be able to convince them because it requires a whole worldwide effort, and I'd love to lead that effort if we could, because then we can bounce back immediately. We won't even have a collapse. There's not even going to be a recession. The only reason why there are recessions and collapses is because people stop working. That's the only that's it. Nothing else. Think about it. You plant a seed in the ground, one seed, an apple seed, and then poof, in like a year or 2 or 3 or whatever it is, you suddenly have apple trees. And a lot of them too, because every single apple seed produces hundreds upon maybe thousands of apples, okay? And each of those seeds has the potential of becoming hundreds and thousands of apple trees as well. We have all sorts of seeds still. As long as we don't accept all of the new fancy stuff that they're gonna try and do with seeds and they take our seeds away from us, we're still good. We're fine. So we've got to retain seeds, and as long as everyone is okay with that, and as long as everyone keeps using those seeds, we're going to have unlimited food for a long period of time. And the moment that we begin to become too many people on the planet, trust me, that's going to be easily solved. We can figure things out. We're humans. We've got great brains, right? And maybe we have to go to other planets and make them more habitable, etc., because we're too many people here. That's okay. Like, we will figure it out. The only problem comes from wars. We don't want wars. We don't want a massive great reset, as they call it. We don't have to have that if we have the information that we need in order for us to never fight with each other. But the blame game encourages fighting and violence, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. So if we understand that fiat currency paper dollars and all other currencies on the planet don't have any purchasing power, we just simply have to do what the rich do. The vast majority of the rich people, know this information. And so as a result, what do? They buy assets. The poor middle class, they buy liabilities. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. You could say at this point in time that gold and silver and Bitcoin and Ethereum puts money in your pocket because it's going to increase in value in time. Most probably, I can't say 100% sure for Bitcoin and Ethereum, but for gold and silver, it's going to happen. And the reason why that is because the value of the dollar is decreasing and the value of your fiat currency is decreasing. So as long as that continues to happen, which it pretty much has to do, then those things are going to go up in value, which means that they're an asset at this point in time. In the future, maybe less so. But for now, gold and silver, okay? You have an asset, a business, gold, silver, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever. You have that, you're going to put money in your pocket. The rich people buy more of that. And as a result of that, they now get more money. Paper issued stuff, okay? And what do they do with that money? They buy more assets. No wonder that there is wealth inequality. And that's not the cause of poverty, right? Wealth inequality does not cause poverty. Wealth inequality is poverty for some people. And then for other people, wealth inequality is riches and abundance. But it's not the cause of poverty. What causes poverty is ignorance of you not knowing this information that I'm trying to share with you today and that I'm trying to share with Gary so that we can have a fruitful conversation about this so that we can save the planet. Liabilities, on the other hand, is the opposite of an asset. It's stuff that takes money out of your pocket. And usually this is in the form of debt. Okay, so when you borrow against your future, you're basically saying to a bank or to a company that, hell yeah, I'm going to take on this 10, 20, 30% interest rate and I'm going to buy this stuff right now because I'm impatient and I want to have stuff. What is the consequence of that? You're now literally giving this fiat currency paper that everyone still seems to believe is still worth something, and you're giving that to the rich people who quickly take that money and they put it not in their pocket, but into assets that put more money into their pocket so that they can buy more assets. You, on the other hand, you don't have any assets. You've got liabilities. And those liabilities is you paying a rich person in order for you to have that thing right now. So instead, if you stop doing that, you stop borrowing money from the rich, and you instead lived below your means, and you made more money, and you produced more than you consume, and then you spend, you would put yourself on the path towards riches. But only if you take that worthless piece of paper and you buy assets with it. You can't get rich with saving money. That's why what happened in August 1971 is so rude, because it was an ignorance tax, an inflation tax that's invisible, that no one sees except for the fact that prices are getting more expensive now. I don't really know why. And it must be the rich people's fault. And to some extent it is the very, very, very elite rich, because they knew this. Or back to the topic of, was it actually a good thing? Because then we'd have all these inventions and have 50 years of partying and really enjoying having lots and lots of money, or at least lots and lots of opportunity for the middle class, which is now going to be stripped from them. And it's going to be like a lottery winner. They won the lottery when Nixon basically took the dollar off of the gold standard, and now they spent that money and it's gone. And it's going to be gone for a long period of time. Are they now going to choose to be depressed? Or are they going to choose to educate themselves on what actually happened and then make sure that this never, ever, ever happens again in history for their kids and their grandkids? We have a choice of changing history because we're making history right now. Which brings me to the concept of good times create weak men. And what is a weak man? Real quick. Weak man is someone who blames other people for their issues. It is what it is. No one is to blame. It's no one's fault. It's not even your fault. But you gotta choose from this moment forward to not blame anyone and to rather start making progress towards getting assets. And there's nothing wrong with getting assets. You're not taking away anything from anyone else by taking assets. In fact, you're giving yourself more power as a good person to do good in society by you becoming more powerful. Okay, so you need to understand this point because rich people are not all bad. There are some good rich people, and as a result, you can become rich. It's good that you become rich. It's very good. So once you start understanding that concept, you can start now buying assets. Create businesses. Do something for yourself because it's going to change the trajectory of your future generations. So, weak men, we blame. And so that causes bad times. And at some point, if we do this on a societal whole, that means that we're going to have a lack of resources. Okay, so we're going to enter into extreme poverty for a lot of people. And yeah, that means that we're going to enter into Nigeria territory, India territory, Brazil territory, like Gary is talking about. But we don't want that. We can avoid it. But only if we understand this. We might not be able to avoid it on a global scale because of the momentum that's picking up towards it and the pride of everyone. Like the more pride everyone has, the less we find solutions and start educating the people on those solutions. If everyone was humble, then everyone would pick it up immediately because it's just facts. It's just logical sense of what's going on. And we would make changes and we would vote for those changes and we would make things happen fast. But unfortunately, because of pride and because people don't want to be told what to do and because people want to continue to blame, we're going to enter into bad times. Those bad times are going to include wars. Is going to include not much products and services. I'm grateful for my bananas and my oranges and my good stuff right now because I know that at some point in time in the future, maybe that's not going to be available. And I hate that. I hate knowing that in the future, something is not going to be available that I loved during the years of plenty. And you should hate that too, right? And so we want to make sure that you put yourself in a position so you can enjoy the things that you enjoy long term. Because bad times are temporary. Even though we're going to go through those bad times, it's going to make us stronger. It's going to make us better and it's going to teach us everything that we need to know for our next generation. The bad times lead to strong men. Strong men meaning leaders of nations, leaders of businesses, of companies, leaders of communities, leaders of families, leaders of the future. This comes from bad times, and we have to go through bad times to get it, or we can self-select to do that during the good times. You can choose to become an amazing leader right now. And if we are all good leaders, and obviously there's going to be a level to this, right? Some leaders are better than others, but if we can all come to a point where we're effectively leading our families, because that's the cornerstone of society, then things will be progressing very nicely. We can move on to the next levels and explore, the world more and explore the universe and explore, it's up to us what we want to do with our time at that point. we will now have brought us into good times again. And it's gonna come, and it's gonna be fantastic. And preferably, we can keep this time moving forward in good times, but it's gonna require a lot of leaders going through a hard time, leading the people who are stubborn, including the rich, including the poor, including the middle class, in understanding these concepts in unity so that we can come up with great solutions. I wish I could end the video there, but I've got so much important stuff to share with you guys, so I'm just going to continue. And I hope you're okay with that. Make sure you share and like and subscribe. Send this video to your friends and family and your mom, like Gary says. Exactly. Okay, what happened to money eventually? Well, we now entered into the digital age, where we now had the internet. And from the push of a button on a banker's computer, someone could take on debt. And now the bank owns that debt. They didn't have to do anything in order for them to be in that position of issuing you money. And you accepted that debt because you want to buy your stuff. The crazy part is that they don't have your money. So if you have money in the bank, they don't have it. It's very important to understand this in order for you to prepare for these bad times that are coming. Because at any moment in time, if people understood that their money was not in the bank, and the vast majority of people do not understand this, they would take out that money or take out whatever funds are in there now that might still have some value so that they can put it into assets, right? And people haven't come to that point yet, so there's trillions of dollars still in banks today, which is crazy to believe because they don't have it. So what instead has happened is that we've got this huge, massive debt bubble. And this debt bubble is based upon the future collaboration of the people. Meaning that I'm going to keep going to work, I'm going to still have a job, and I'm going to pay my debt for my mortgage, I'm going to pay for my car, I'm going to pay for, whatever consumer debt that I've got. Oh shoot, what happens if I lose my job? Oh shoot, I lost my job. Oh shoot, I can't pay for my mortgage. I can't pay for my car. Oh shoot, the towing truck company is out there taking my car right now. Oh shoot, we have to sell at a loss because the bank has taken our mortgage because we were unable to pay for it. Oh shoot, and this is going to happen for hundreds of millions of people worldwide, pretty much at the same time, which is kind of scary to believe. And I personally believe, and I want to explain this on a different video of like what's going to transpire, because I'm a chartist as well. I love trading myself, and so we have the ability to predict what's going to happen a little bit more than the average guy. And I want to share with you on a different video of what's going to literally happen over the course of the next few months and years. But that's not the video for that now. I just want you to understand that the banks don't have your money, and you should probably store your wealth instead in gold and silver, safe in a vault where no one knows where it is, okay, except for you. And Bitcoin and Ethereum, you could buy some of that because it's going to probably appreciate and go up in value as long as Bitcoin doesn't get, as long as there's no security breach and Bitcoin remains as strong and powerful as it has been for the past 15 years. It's a pretty good, safe bet, okay? But who knows? And maybe that is safer if you're going to travel a lot and all that stuff. But I'm just saying, your bank ain't got your money. And as soon as all of the banks begin to go bankrupt, the government are going to come and say, oh yeah, let's use this digital CBDC thing that we've got for you here. And they're going to try and trick people to believe that it has any value, and it doesn't. And yet you're going to need it in order for you to buy stuff with it. But if no one accepts it and they only accept gold and silver, you're stuck. And you're screwed, and your family's screwed. And so make sure you get gold and silver before this collapse happens so that you can take care of your friends and family. Gold is real, silver is real, Bitcoin and Ethereum could be real, real estate is real, and land is real. Also, guns are real. Guns, chickens, cows, anything that you can eat or that produces food, make sure you have that because it's real. The money you have in the bank is not real, and the money that you have in cash is also not real. It doesn't exist, you don't have it. And if you only have that, you're completely and utterly broke. That's not a good place to be. So let's go back and understand the wealth inequality equation. What's the problem? What's the solution? The problem that we have is that we're spending and consuming more than we're producing and making. So immediately we need to start putting in the 80-hour work week to produce and to make more than we're spending and consuming. That is the biggest alpha omega problem that we've got. And it's not making it better that the whole world believes that the dollar has value. So as soon as we get off of that belief, then we can start making progress. Because right now, we're going to have all hell break loose once people begin to become aware, and that's when you need to be prepared. So if you are prepared, you shall not fear, and make sure that you have a community around you to protect you during that time frame. Because, I mean, you with the gun, I mean, maybe you're good with guns, I don't know, but like, yeah, okay, so prepare yourself so that you can be around people that have the skills, that have the guns, that have everything that they need during that time frame. Hopefully we can prevent it. Let's prevent it, shall we? That would be easier to do. None of us want to die from a gunshot wound during the financial collapse. Okay. You're also seeing a bunch of rich people on Instagram, on YouTube, flashing all of this stuff that they've got. And a lot of them actually do have money. Like, you can make a lot of money being a YouTuber these days. I've seen it myself. And this very often causes you and others to feel insignificant and powerless, because it's like, oh my gosh, like, how do I produce 1 million followers on YouTube and Instagram? Like, you most probably are not gonna, right? The average viewer who sees my video is not gonna be able to do that because he didn't have a burning desire. If he has a burning desire and he actually makes that his alpha omega thing that he's gonna do, then you could do it. But you probably don't have that burning desire and do not know how to create that burning desire and don't have a plan to make it happen and don't have the expertise and experience of how to do it to make it happen. You can all get that inside of the ONTRACC community, by the way. So what are you supposed to do? Just do your best. Just go out there and make things happen in terms of work. Get 3 jobs, start producing, start making things working for you, and you can crush it in life. You don't have to be massive, multi-millionaire, rich type thing. You just need to be aware of what's going on and prepare yourself and get some gold and silver, a lot if you can, and work your ass off the next few months and years, because you'll be ready. This is not gonna happen tomorrow or the next month, okay? And make sure that you subscribe so that you can see what's going to happen long term, because I'm going to keep you updated. I know I'm going to keep you updated. Okay, so there are some great things happening right now in society. And part of that is you having the opportunity to go out there and get 3 jobs and succeed, because there's still businesses being produced, still millionaires and rich dudes that are still trying to build stuff, right? So you can get a job. That's good. Those are great things happening. You can still buy gold and silver extremely cheap. It's insane that it's like $33 for a silver ounce right now. That's ridiculous. It's gonna go up to $100, $200. It's gonna go ballistic. And it hasn't happened yet. I mean, it increased by 50% after I started telling my clients to start buying it. It's gone up 50% since then. But, it has a lot more room to grow because no one sees it as necessary to buy silver. Get some, okay? Gold and silver, amazing. Silver is the best investment, by the way. And what are some other great things that are happening? Well, it's the richest period in the history of the world, because we're living in a massive debt bubble that is not real, okay? The money isn't there. Like, we're promising our future work, which doesn't exist. Once the collapse starts happening, we stop working. If we stop working, the debt collapses on itself, and suddenly we now get 90, 95, 99% reduction of wealth on the planet. All of the stuff is still going to be there, but it's just going to be very different in terms of who gets to buy it and who doesn't, and there's a massive wealth transfer gonna happen, basically based on your ignorance on this situation. Okay, we've got the biggest middle class ever. It's gonna shrink, unfortunately. Times of greatest opportunity to go from poor to middle class to rich. By any means, by any other time and era, this is the ultimate time to become rich. Congratulations with that. We've got information at our fingertips, man. Like, we've got the internet. We've got the phone. We've got the ability to DM rich people on the other side of the planet. For the first time today, I wrote Alex Hormozy. I was like, this is pretty cool. I'm literally texting Alex Hormozy. Obviously, he's not going to read it because it gets 99 plus messages every single day, probably. But I still sent him a message, and if he received it, so it's up to him now if he wants to read it, or his assistant, or whatever. Okay. AI is actually here to solve our problems. And it also could be the demise of society as we know it, if we give it too much power, or if we are ourselves evil. Because I've noticed that AI kind of reflects the person that they communicate with. So it's going to be interesting to see what AI leads us to, but so far it's an amazing invention that helps a lot. We still have safe neighborhoods. Most places, private property is still respected except by the government. That's a problem. We understand how the world works very well, and because of experience and because of people writing books about it and people being able to get educated, etc. And again, because of the internet, of us people being able to communicate with each other, we have the longest lifespans ever in the history of the world. That's pretty awesome. And we've got the lowest birth mortality as well. So there are amazing things happening, and maybe this wouldn't have happened if Richard Nixon didn't take us off the gold standard. So I'm a little bit like, was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? I think it's bad. It's majority bad because of the circumstance we're going to find ourselves in the future. But there's a lot of good stuff that has come from it because it's allowed us to build this monster of a society that we have in a positive sense that puts you in the situation to succeed massively. So thank you, universe, for putting this situation in place. And yeah, you can put yourself in a great position to benefit during these times. Like, you don't have to necessarily suffer. And even better, you can participate in being the solution. Like, we just need 100 million men to understand these concepts and to teach the people, and we can actually avoid this complete societal collapse. Here are some bad things that are happening. I'm going to end that. Why did I end with bad stuff? I should have ended with good stuff, but here we are. Let's talk about it. The family is the cornerstone of society, and it's not functional right now. And it's actually becoming worse because parents don't have capacity to raise their kids right. And so as a result, kids are hurt. There's mental health issues because players are sleeping around with women, causing future wives to not be able to connect with their husbands. As a result, families, again, not functional. We have a lot of victim mentality, lots of blame going on. And no offense to Gary, he's freaking awesome, freaking amazing bringing up this discussion. I wish I was more sharing about this situation, but it needs to come out now. I'm glad that he brought this up so that I can share this with people, because I shared with my community, but I haven't focused so much on it on this channel, which I will do more of. Thank you, Gary. There's too many distractions. I mean, gosh dang, you got prawn, you got the basketball. I'm a victim of that sometimes because I like basketball and so I like watching it. Sports, yeah, there's a lot of distractions. Women are a massive distraction, especially those that are showing their bodies and all that stuff. It's a problem. There is widespread ignorance on money and wealth that has not been solved yet. Robert Kiyosaki did a fantastic job. Thank you, Robert Kiyosaki, for putting that information out there in how the rich think, because now that's allowed in the past 20 years. It's been 30 years now since that book came out, actually, almost close. Rich people can now be produced as a result of his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So very grateful for that. But there still is widespread ignorance and we need to solve it. The debt bubble is about to pop. Shoot. That's a problem. People are not prepared. That's a problem. More inequality is coming. More unemployment. More violence. I want to avoid the violence, man. Let's avoid the violence. You can be a good person. We can collaborate as a society. Less trust's coming, less safety coming. And yeah, another big thing that's a problem, and in fact, it is the biggest problem on planet Earth right now because of the elites that understand what's happening because they've studied history, is cronyism and corporatism, where the rich elite are controlling the politicians. And as a result, what Gary is trying to do of getting the politicians who are controlled by the very rich, he's trying to get them to tax the rich. That's not going to happen. Like, unfortunately. And he should be able to predict that with his, trading models. Because the money is in the politicians' pockets and they're being puppeteered by the elite rich. And those elite rich are, unfortunately, they're not good people. But they're ignorant. Because if they were ignorant, they would understand that we could solve this. We could. They just are ignorant on the fact that that would be a good outcome. And it would solve all of their problems, and it would also keep them safe and their families safe. Because we're entering into a phase now where they might not be safe, those billionaires. And that's because they didn't produce opportunity for the average poor middle class person. And you can avoid that violence, and you can share this information so that people get used to not blaming and not being a victim, and instead try to move towards gaining power in your life. Retain that power. Don't give it away by blaming other people. And if you do that, then we have a chance of putting the bad elites that have been doing this corporatism and cronyism for decades and millennia, that they should be, they should have their wealth taken from them. Some of them should probably go behind bars for some of the corruptness and stuff that they've been doing. If there is fraud, if there is corruption, if there is stuff that has happened there, then justice needs to be paid, right? But we need to do it in a civil manner, and we need to do our best to understand and to share this message everywhere and prepare ourselves for what's coming. I know you have the capacity to do great things. You specifically have amazing capabilities. You have an amazing brain. You simply need opportunity. And if you got opportunity, you would make things happen. So get those opportunities. They're out there. And if they're not there, create those opportunities for yourself and lead your family, lead your loved ones, make things happen. I'm excited for you. We can do this together. We can win. And I'll see you guys in the next one.